customer service, done right, can be your company's single biggest competitive advantage. Welcome to the Customer Service Revolution. Join customer service authority and best-selling author John DiJulius as he interviews leaders who are revolutionizing their industries. This is more than a podcast, though. It's a movement. The Customer Service Revolution is a radical overthrow of conventional business mentality designed to transform what customers and employees experience. If you're a revolutionary customer service leader who's ready to stop competing on price and obsessed with building a brand that people cannot live without, this podcast is for you.
People don't come out of college with a CXO degree. That's why the Customer Experience Executive Academy was created. When you're tasked with designing, leading, and managing the customer's experience, there's a lot at stake. We know you want to make a difference in your organization, and we also know how difficult it is to do that when you aren't sure what to tackle first. The Customer Experience Executive Academy gives enrollees the tools to efficiently create an impact as a customer experience leader. Our graduates are taught a simple framework that allows them to create customized solutions within their business. You'll implement systems throughout the year-long program while learning and sharing best practices with your fellow classmates. For details on how you can enroll, contact Claudia at thedijuliusgroup.com or schedule a call at tdg.click/Claudia.
Welcome back, revolutionaries. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking to one of my favorite human beings, Sandy Vastola from the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department. Sandy was the customer experience project lead for Charlotte Police. She was instrumental in helping them create a customer experience revolution in law enforcement, which now is being copied by police departments throughout the U.S. She is an alumni of the Customer Experience Executive Academy, and she won the prestigious 2022 Customer Experience Executive of the Year. Welcome, Sandy.
Thank you, John. That was a great intro. Thank you so much for having me.
It's so great to have you and be talking to you. And, I just want you to basically tell everyone how easy this project was. I mean, it was a piece of cake.
Piece of cake. Anything but, right? Anything but. Yeah, our program really started back in 2020.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll take you back
Probably
a couple
back
of years.
earlier than that with, the discussions of how we do it. So yeah, tell our listeners, because this was never ever done before. And
No.
when you even thought about it, man, you got some stones thrown your way internally, externally by the public saying, I remember, police saying, and rightfully so. Yeah. Am I gonna, say certainly my pleasure, I have a gun in my face, and this hospitality, and it was fair. It was fair at the time. But so where, and you have the two things I tell everyone they need. You had executive sponsorship from Chief Jennings,
Yes.
and he was the visionary. But
Yes.
without that, you're not going to have it.
Right.
But without the executor who you were, a vision is just, a dream. So sorry, tell us how this all kind of unfolded, and became what it is today, the model.
Sure. So, back in 2020, as you know, we were all head deep in COVID and working through those impacts throughout the workforce and throughout our communities, as well as we were in civil unrest after George Floyd happened. And so our basically operations of our department came under fire from our city council, from the nation, from the world, with organizations coming out and saying, hey, you have to change this policy. You need to update this. You need to do this differently.
Defund the police.
Defund the police movement. Reimagine policing and what that looks like. And so we were on a weekly basis going, I say, across the street over to our government center and presenting to our elected officials about policies, about our accreditation and what that means, and basically defending this world of policing with policy, with procedure, with the fact that this one event does not define the entire uniform or the whole profession. And so we were dealing with a lot of that. The chief himself was going through a lot of personal strife. He lost his father and his brother due to COVID, and he had multiple other family members impacted as well. And so it was a really trying time. I know it was a really trying time for everyone across the country, but it was really trying for our chief of police. And at that time, you know what? He went through a Chick-fil-A drive-through. And he was with his wife and he wanted a chicken sandwich. And so he went through that drive-through and a 16-year-old took his order and said, "What would you like, sir?" "My pleasure." Gave him food. It was very consistent. It was a high quality product. He received hospitality in return. And he came into work the next day and he said to me, "Sandy, why can't we do more of that?" And I said, "Okay, chief, tell me more. Tell me more." You know, and really what he was getting at was, how do we infuse hospitality models more into what we do every day? We're not moving the needle with policy change. You know, we can sit here and amend our policies all day long and review and go back and forth on, you don't like that word in our policy. Okay, we'll change that. Okay, you need this to say this. Okay, we'll change that. But at the end of the day, we truly did not see movement within our organization or externally with our customers, okay, with the people we serve.
And who are your
because of policy
customers?
change.
Who's a police department's customer, Sandy?
And that's a great question, because if you ask our people 4 years ago, they would laugh at you and say, "We don't have customers. There isn't anyone we serve." And we absolutely do. It would be, you know, every community member and citizen who has any type of engagement, any person who calls 911 and is a victim of crime, any witness to a crime, and even the suspects who they arrest.
I love that you guys say even the suspects.
Even the suspects, how we treat them, how we interact with them, how we talk to them and work with them as we move forward. It all has a customer service edge to it. And so at that time, I was talking with the chief. He really wanted to go the hospitality route. And I said, you know, I know the guy. John, you and I go way back. And I told him, you know, if
your restaurant days, you started off in the restaurant industry.
Yes. So we go way back to the melting pot restaurants, front burner brands. 15 years ago, can you believe it? 15 years ago, you were coming in and building the Secret Service model for the melting pot restaurants. And I just went, by the way, I'm not trying to give a shameless plug, but I just went a couple of weeks ago and had the best experience. And I think a lot of it is predicated on the work you did with all of those folks in building that whole Secret Service structure behind the scenes.
The perfect night out, Bob.
The perfect night out. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So I knew you from that previous life. And I told the chief, this is going to be a very big change from anything we've done before. And he was all in. He talked with you. He didn't want you to have a law enforcement background.
So Sandy, you reach out, say, you know, chief wants to have a call, and from a sales standpoint, right? When we're talking to someone who's considering us, we look for traps, right? And and chief said, "Have you ever worked with policing before?" And I'm like, here's the trap, but I got to be honest. And I said, you know, I'm going to lose this gig, but you know, and so I said, you know, chief, we never have. I got to be honest with you. You know, and if you want, I can help you find someone. I'm like, I lost this opportunity. And it was a trap.
Yes.
But if I would have said, yes, oh God, we've worked with, you know, Cleveland and New York and Boston, he would have said, no, thank you. And it was so like refreshing. He didn't want someone from policing. So explain why.
Yes, because he said, and we're obviously coming off of weeks and weeks of justifying our existence and going through policy. He knows policing, and he's surrounded by people who are experts at policing. What he really wanted was an infusion of hospitality into this profession. And so I think that's really what sold him, was the fact that you knew hospitality, you didn't know this world. He said, great, let's build something together, because it doesn't exist in a formalized curriculum up until that point. It didn't exist in this profession. And that's the golden ticket. That's, you know, if we can impact not only our internal workings in those relationships, but the way we serve others externally, we've changed the world. And that's really how we approach this, is if we can tackle that and solve for that and create consistency, because consistency is that key word. You may have that fantastic interaction with me, but if it's not consistent with the next person and the next person, we've lost all day long. And so he really, I mean, he loved you from jump, John. He did. He loved working with you and bringing you in to talk to our people. And it's different for our people. You know, the law enforcement profession are folks who come in and they learn a certain way of doing things, and change is very minimal throughout. You execute your training, you work against your training throughout your whole career. And it's difficult to come in and drop new concepts. We may have to do something differently.
Well, you guys were smart, because I had no law enforcement background experience. You know, you had me go on ride-alongs. You had me interview people. You helped create a great steering committee, and this is really important for any project lead or leader out there. You didn't just get the rah-rah people that would, you know, do anything the chief said. You got I don't know if the right word is protagonists, people who, you know, were against this, and you made them part of it. They poked serious holes at what we were doing, which helped, because when we took it to the masses, 2,200 people back then, you know, Charlotte's, you know, the ninth at the time, it was the ninth largest city.
15th largest. Yep.
15th largest. I mean, we're not talking about a little suburb of 150. And we weren't only talking about sworn police officers. You have several hundred unsworn civilians that work there. And, you know, it was for everyone. And so, you know, there's so many people, you know, that you guys brought in that I'm like, oh my God, like, why are they part of the steering committee? They're sabotaging it. And they weren't, they were helping us, you know, they were poking the holes that we would have gotten poked anyway. But to see them become, you know, ambassadors of the program, to see them get up there and say to everyone else, I thought this was BS, you know, and then like, you know, and then, you know, I don't know if it was Joseph, what's his
Jeffrey Joseph?
Yeah.
He's a sergeant now? Yeah.
Sergeant Joseph.
Yes.
You know, he was like, you know, I thought, you know, but he goes, and then, you know, one of them said they went on a call, and, you know, the call was difficult, and it might've been domestic violence, and the person, and they were like thinking, all right, yeah, let's see how this works. And they tried it, and it worked. Right. It de-escalated. And they were, and we had that smoking gun, no pun intended, of, I couldn't believe it worked. I was such a naysayer. And that was better than the Sandy getting up there saying, no, this will work. Yeah, right, Sandy. You know, you don't go out there and deal with, you know, guns in our faces and, you know, our life's on the line, you know, all that.
Yeah, no, and you're absolutely right. Our success could not hang in the balance of just me pushing it. You know, I quickly learned early on, I'm a civilian in this organization. If we want to create real change and move the needle and strongly impact this culture, we need to bring in not only just the sworn element, but those naysayers who are looking at this program critically. And you were a part of the process when we were doing focus groups early on. We were taking some of the work and we were testing it. And we were in some of those focus groups, and they were very strong against it. There were several characters who were very strong against it. And that took us aback at first. That could really detract some people from even moving forward with the work. But, you know, I had many conversations with the chief. We have to lean into this. We need to lean into those who are very critical of the work, who are naysayers of the work. We need to bring them on our side and help us teach the work, because they're credible. They're your front line.
I mean, the media swarmed you guys, the national media. I mean, because this was so literally revolutionary, and they weren't necessarily, it wasn't necessarily all positive. They were questioning, come on. And, you know, besides Charlotte, besides your community and mayors and all that, the national media all came to Charlotte for a couple days to say, come on, how are you possibly doing? Like, this was a project I had never experienced, you know, before, of, you know, and the FOP, you know, we had to sell you guys had to sell the FOP on, besides 2,200 employees. I was shocked that, at least from my perspective, the chief didn't deter. He drew a line in the
Yes.
sand. He said, this is who we're going to be. Get on or get off. And those are my words. But I was like, oh my God, it was the first time I was questioning, I don't know if this will work. But you guys, like I said, were undeterred.
Yeah, and if you have a CEO or a chief in my case who wavers on something like that, it will flop. It will fail. It
Because he
will
was getting
not
criticized
succeed.
for his vision.
He was getting heavily criticized. And you mentioned the FOP, the Fraternal Order of Police. It acts kind of like a union in our area, but it's not a union with all of its rights. They came out heavily against the program and talked about how we don't serve burgers and fries, which is a true statement. I mean, that's true. So you've got all of these challenges to overcome, all of these obstacles to overcome. And in those conversations with the chief, if you have a strong leader who's going to be resolute and stand on that wall and say, no matter what comes at us, we're going to push forward. We are going to move forward with this. We will implement this and we will work toward making a difference. That's what you need from leadership. You need a strong executive who endorses this work, who stands behind the work, and who supports any efforts to bring it to fruition. That's super important. And then from there, to your point, we were all celebrating at the launch. We were like, we did it.
Yeah.
You came into town. We did a big launch. I changed over the laptops. I changed our tunnel that goes.
You thought the work was done.
Oh, I thought the work was done. We put graphics up everywhere. We were celebrating. We were like, woo, because that was a year in the making. It was a lot of work. And then we kind of had a sobering moment of, hey, the work is just beginning.
Yeah.
We need to put together instructors. We need to make sure that we have the curriculum on lock, and we need to implement this in our academy, because it takes us, with the size of our workforce, it takes us 10 months to get our workforce through this mandatory training. So we're right now in our third iteration, we're building our fourth, and it takes us 10 months. We're still wrapping up
And that's
training.
existing employees, right?
That's existing employees.
Right. And then
we
you
teach
also
it at
have
the
to
academy.
build it for new, which is probably easier, right? Because I
Yes.
don't have those habits. I haven't been doing this 22 years. Don't tell me, and that's in every business.
Yes.
That if you tell someone new, hey, we stand on our head when a customer walks in the door, they'll be like, okay. But
Right.
anyone that's successful says, no. I've been doing this, 10, 15, 30 years. I know I don't need to stand on my head. I build a clientele or whatever the business model is.
Yeah, it's much easier when your culture isn't established yet for that new employee.
Yes.
And so they come in thinking, this is culture. This is your culture. This is what you believe in, because we emphasize it very early on at the academy. And in new employee orientation, within your first 2 days of stepping foot on these grounds, you are receiving this training. So it's an early on mindset that, hey, this is how we operate. It's with everyone else where it's challenging. Hey, this is how we've operated forever. And now you want to infuse these more hospitality type tactics into what we do. We're going to be skeptical about that, because we don't have to treat a suspect that way. Now you're giving us tools that inhibit us from doing our jobs. And that's a lot of what we heard. And a big takeaway from that, John, was we're adding to your tool belt. Okay. We're not subtracting from it. We're not telling you, hey, all of those things you did in the academy or however you were trained, throw that out the window. No. We're adding additional tools through communication, through effective methods of communication, and how we can streamline that across the board and create consistency. The key word is consistency. If we create that based on the training we've rolled out, we truly have transformed the entire industry.
And that's what we use, Sandy, in not only the other law enforcements that have jumped on the bandwagon and called us, but we use your implementation with every industry and say, listen, it can't be flavor of the month, right? The easiest thing is to have a big event, bring everyone in and get everyone all jazzed, but that wears off.
Yeah.
And it really starts, as you said, then, certifying that they went through it, then, holding them accountable. And, your industry is so much, everyone understands, maybe I always said, when I spoke, and worked with your people, that, what I got to see firsthand and ride-alongs with your people and stuff, I only had seen that in movies and thought it was embellished. And here, that's all you guys are, doing. And, and you're a grudge buy, right?
Right.
No one wants to, see the black and whites in your rearview mirror. No one wants to see a police car in their driveway. That's, oh, good, thank God, right? And
Right.
so you are right, you're dealing with people in their worst day, worst moment, whatever they are, whether they're the suspect, the victim, even the citizen watching it. It's not a great thing. And so I mean, it's just so hard for what you do versus come to the spa, right? Hey, I'm going to
Right.
give you a massage and a facial day. You're happy, you want to see your massage
Yes.
therapist. You're hugging them a lot of times, after you get your haircut, saying, oh, this is exactly why I wanted. That's a pleasure buy versus no one, very few remember or are excited to see or have to interact with police, because it usually means something went wrong.
But what we really teach on that, John, to kind of dovetail, is that grudge buy really sets the bar low. So, and one of our pillars is exceed. How do
Yeah.
we exceed those expectations when the bar is already so low? You don't have to do much. We have accounts of officers who have these encounters, and we show body-worn camera video in our training. One is an officer stops with a car because it's a disabled vehicle, and she has two kids in the back seat, and he goes above and beyond because the car seats are not secure in the back seat. He's even looking up on Amazon units.
Correct me if I'm wrong. He could cite her, right?
Yes.
Write
Yes.
her, whatever. But instead, go ahead.
Instead, he takes that opportunity to educate her, which is part of our pillars.
Yep.
Okay. And walk her through, hey, this device in your backseat is not secure, making it very unsafe for your children. Here are some options. And then he goes to Amazon and he looks up options on his computer in his squad car, looks up options for her to have a secure base and a secure car seat for her children, and talks with her about the right way to install these devices in the back of her car. Little things like that. I mean, you don't think that can make someone's day.
Need help getting brilliant at the basics? Contact Claudia at thedijuliusgroup.com and find out how the team of consultants at the DiJulius Group can help you get there.
I've got, one of your words under exceed, which blew my mind that you guys were going to put that you're going to put in there. I'm like, oh, you might lose people, was day making. Be a day maker.
Yeah, I love it. It's my favorite.
That's
my favorite.
That.
I love it.
You guys were just so bold to do that. Like Chick-fil-A could be a day maker, the Ritz-Carlton, police being a day maker. But like, I believe one of your stories is similar to this, and they knew that this person probably wouldn't do it because they couldn't afford it, right? They could tell.
Right.
And they had them follow them to the nearest Walmart. And, they paid, the officer paid for the new car seat for him. I mean, those stories never get talked about.
Right.
And you have so many of them, as I'm sure a lot of police departments do, but I know you guys have more because of this project and this commitment that it wasn't flavor of the month. I mean, you're still doing it. And another thing I love that you guys did, and it was from feedback, is saying, all right, hold on. You want us to, be better with the customer service, whatever that means, right?
Sure.
The policing. But they, like a lot of companies said, I don't like the way we're being treated. And so you guys immediately, it's almost simultaneously focused on the employee experience. And rolled that out. So, because, what gets experience on the inside is getting experience on the outside. That was so telling and put, what is it, the phrase, your whatever, where your mouth is. Your
money where your mouth is.
Thank you. I mean, you literally and figuratively did that. And then you really got credibility, because it wasn't just, hey, do this. You need to experience it yourself.
I think we got more buy-in going that route. We quickly understood when we rolled this training out, there were a lot of people, one, who say, hey, we've been doing this all along, so why does this matter? But it comes back to that consistency point. If we can all train and execute similarly, we've really transformed a culture. Two, coming off of riots, coming off of COVID, coming off of community, not necessarily treating people in this profession the best. It's understandable. It's understandable for them to come in and say, hey, why are you giving us training to treat them better?
Right.
You need to give them that training. The
Sandy,
community
I
needs to receive this
literally,
training.
when I was in the ride-alongs, we would be, the police cruiser would be just driving down the street and people would be flipping them off.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh my God, like I could never do it for many reasons, but I always tell employees, right? A cashier, a waitress, if someone gives you an attitude, don't mirror that.
Yes.
Well, I never thought about someone flipping me off just because I'm in a uniform. I mean, that is just, I couldn't do that. I couldn't.
We have that in our program, John. Don't mirror that
flip them
negative
back.
attitude.
Don't flip them off.
Don't, and it can escalate. This is true. We had a call come in for a bug in a home. And so this officer had to respond to the bug in the home. It was a praying mantis loose in the home. And then you immediately go out, and then the next call is a homicide or something like that.
Yeah.
And how you can't bring the last call to your next one. We put that in the program.
Right.
There are several elements, to your point, that they are receiving in this profession that normal people may not necessarily go through.
Empathy fatigue.
Empathy fatigue, for sure.
Right. And so you guys called a death notice. Yes. Which, means you have to go to someone's house and tell them that their son, daughter was in a car accident, whatever that could be. But then they could be coming to my house next. And because I got my iPad stolen and I want this, suspect found, and I want every resource available. And you know what they would love to tell? You know what I would tell me? But they can't. They can't, and nor should they. It's relative. That's my crisis, but it doesn't compare to their last call when they had to tell, a parent or parents that their 16-year-old daughter was involved in a horrible, tragic car accident. I mean, you guys just deal with stuff that we don't realize. And broad stroking, don't deal with it perfectly. We're not saying that.
No.
But you're trying to move the needle, and you have. So it's 3 years later since
going into year 4. Year four. Yes.
All right. What's it look like today?
So we're in the process of wrapping up our Growing Minds Together training, which we always reemphasize prior trainings before this. Our first one was basically kind of like our template, if you will. It was what is our experience action statement, our pillars, those types of things. Our second training, because we learned so much from the first training, is we really do focus inside. So it's called Care, Commit, Create was our second training. And it really did a deeper dive into the employee, because if the employee is not well or providing great customer service internally, there's no way they're going to be able to be that expert or provide that great customer service to those other customers outside the agency.
Yeah, let me just make sure our listeners understand, and it may be obvious. I don't know if it was obvious to me until I got behind the scenes, but you are probably one of the leading professions with PTSD.
Yes.
I mean, because you, like I said, on a daily basis, your officers see things I only see in movies. And for that, it takes a toll. It takes a toll.
It really does. And so then, you're absolutely right. When we come around and we say, now we're going to do customer service training, you can imagine just some of that sentiment internally going, come on, this is everything we're dealing with. And then now you want to tell us that we still have to improve how we treat people. But you know what? This is what we say too, John, is there's no complaints every year when they have to qualify on their service weapon. There's no complaints when they have to do defensive tactics, okay? Or when they get a new taser and they have to go out and qualify with a new taser. This is the same thing. You have to train to get proficient. You have to train at the customer experience or customer service work in order to become proficient at it. And so we did roll out that second training that was focused on the employee. Our third training was the growing mindset. It was called the growth mindset training, and it reemphasized again the work from the previous courses, but it talked about growth versus fixed mindset and how we can amplify and provide better customer service with a growth mindset and what that means. And going into next year, we're developing even more training. The way that we've seen success is through measurement. You have to find a way
Yeah,
to
that's what
measure.
I wanted to know.
Yes.
How do we know at the end of the day this was all worth it?
So we do surveys and testing. After every single course, we do surveys. Every class who takes them, internally, we do. And then we have public surveys going out this year. So we're going to be working with the community to assess, is this seating? Because it was too early in year 1 and 2 to see, are we moving the needle externally with that external customer? But we can see internally, we know that 39% of our workforce believes we are actually implementing this work and using this work every day, because that's what they're saying. Is they're telling us 39% of our workforce is using this as an additional tool on their tool belt. We know that we're shifting our culture. 31% of our employees have already seen a cultural shift because of this work. They've seen this work taking root and seed, and they see the consistency and execution, and it's shifting the culture of this organization. We use different programs on how we test. So we do the fun kind of interactive questions and live answers. And then we have a research and planning department who take all of those results, and they're developing reports for us so that we know, hey, is this working or not? 43% are applying the work in their everyday job. So we're taking measurements and going back and determining, hey, okay, these are some baselines. We're going to continue to evaluate on an annual basis to determine the direction of the program.
And I gotta believe it is, in a positive way, a deterrent to some people applying for a job, because that's not what, I didn't go to the police academy, for this. And it's an attraction for many people. But like I always use this as an example. If you had a niece or a neighbor and she was 19 and she wasn't personable, she never looked up from her phone, right? She never had more than a one-word answer of how you're doing when you see her at Thanksgiving or in the driveway or whatever. And she said, "Oh, I'm looking for a job." You probably wouldn't say, "Oh, Chick-fil-A would be perfect for you." Right? I mean, so just the reputation deters there. But on the flip side, if she was the opposite, adorable, sweet, everything, you'd be like, "Oh my God, you'd be perfect at Chick-fil-A, and I know they'd love you." Right. So I'm thinking that, with the reputation that Charlotte has now, it's attracting the right fit, and maybe deterring the people that just would never buy into this.
Oh, and coming out of COVID, everybody, and with mass civil unrest, I think everybody in this profession, we're experiencing huge declines in applications, huge declines in hiring, but we're up 31% in hiring. We're up 26% in applications. So something's working, John, something's working for sure. And I think it's, I feel like it's mission fulfillment work.
It's got to provide more meaning and purpose.
Yes, it's purpose. Yes. Yeah, for sure. Because you really do feel, we get, I've been advising with Portland and flew out to Portland on behalf of our agency and worked with them on understanding they lost 60% of their workforce. And they still recognize customer service needs to be at the forefront of what they do. We're working with Minneapolis, Minnesota, and Minneapolis, at the root of everything from George Floyd, recognizes they want to implement pillars from customer service work in order to improve those relationships with the community. So
how many calls the world is watching. Have you gotten, from police departments? It's crazy, because I know you send a lot our way.
Yes.
It's crazy. I mean, it
dozens
of concept, and we've probably worked with a dozen since this all came out, a dozen other police departments, and I know you help them so much. The other thing I want to talk to you about is, all right, so every organization in the world, every team in the world has 3 groups. It doesn't change. The only thing that changes is the percentage of those groups. Okay. And so
Okay.
every organization has just believers. Like
Yes.
if Sandy tell me they've never, they've never steered me wrong, I will trust them. Love them, but sometimes it's only a few, sometimes it's 5%, 10%. And then on the opposite end, we always have critics and cynics, eye
Yes.
rollers. They're asking me to do more for less, and all those things. And then the middle, the third group is fence sitters. And the fence sitters are, I'm going to wait and see. I'm not sure about this. And whoever they may eat lunch with today or go have a beer with today, they're going to get swayed for the time being. Oh, you're right. I didn't think about it that way, or vice versa. And so, I think what you guys did really, really well is, you really, afterwards celebrated the believers
Yes.
and the people who were doing it, which caused FOMO, right? I had to ask my kids what FOMO meant. Fear of missing out. Oh, they're
Right.
the cool kids. I better join them, right? And you swayed so many of the fence sitters. I don't know, and you could
Yeah.
answer this, if we'll ever get to the hard critics and cynics. We may, but too many companies I find focus on them and
Right.
and neglect and ignore giving the sunlight to the people who bought into it and are proving the proof of concept. So how did you feel about that?
I think they thought in the beginning, John, that the critics and cynics would win out because they would be so loud, they
Yeah.
would drown out the movement.
Yeah.
Okay. They would drown out the effort. And I think when they understood this is here to stay, it's not going away, you're going to always have your critics and cynics. You're always going to have your mass supporters, right? They're always going to be there. But we could not dedicate our energy to those folks who we would not be able to move. We're focusing on that officer over in Central who's been on the clock for over 25 years. And this is a true story. Kind of surly, old hat, didn't believe in the work. And he received 2 different acts of excellence. So one of the things we do is on our team, we have a dedicated officer who goes back through and watches body worn camera video to catch the great acts. Because so often the body worn camera comes out and it's depicting, unfortunately, an officer involved shooting or something where an officer may not be doing the best thing. But we have a team dedicated to the positive interactions and the community engagement and the life-saving work and the
Day making.
de-escalation and
Yeah.
the
Yeah. Yeah.
day making. And we recognize that work every week. The chief hand-signs certificates for those employees. So this particular employee in Central received 2 acts of excellence, and he came back to his roll call, which is like a team meeting, and he apologized to the guys on his shift and said, "I'm sorry I've had such a bad attitude."
So you can win over the critics and cynics.
Yes.
In my experience, it's mostly you can win over the fence sitters, but man, it's
Sure.
hard. It's
It's
hard.
hard. It's hard. And that's not where we really focus our time. We
Right.
focus it on the work.
Yeah.
So even if you're a massive critic or cynic, but you've done the work and you have examples for it, when we recognize you, you're human too. You like that recognition. You like to be celebrated for the work you do. And sometimes you see, yeah, what's bad? This is what we've said all along. What is bad in this program? What are we rolling out that hurts you? Nothing. It gives you more tools. It gives you, lines and scripts and ways to have those interactions where before you may not have known how to end that conversation or how to be proficient at whatever it is you're trying to display or how to educate them on all the different steps in the process. And now okay, I need to go through these steps and make sure they understand this is what comes next, or this is how I can exceed those expectations. This is how I can become that day maker. And again, the bar is so low, it takes very, very little in order to do that. And when they see, oh, wow, I really can blow someone away just by doing X, Y, or Z, they're seeing the fruits of the labor because they're seeing it impact those relationships. That's the ultimate goal.
And again, to yours and Chief's credit, it wasn't just a program of the year of 2021. You guys sent at least 6 people.
With seven graduates
through the Customer Experience Executive Academy. You
Yes.
are the first ever law enforcement to have a chief experience officer who is a sworn officer, literally an officer. I mean, you guys just did so many, and one of the coolest things is we had the chief speak at our customer service revolution conference.
Yes.
And so when we were doing that, and I'm putting it together, and we have 10, 12 big name speakers that charge $50,000, $75,000 a keynote. I mean, these are renowned speakers and then we have someone who's not a professional speaker. He's the
Right.
chief, and I love the chief, but yeah, when I'm putting this thing together, I get a little worried, right? We're putting someone who up there isn't, polished and doesn't do this every day for a living. But I thought the story would resonate. He got 2 standing ovations.
Yes.
Halfway through, and the audience is business people. Halfway through, he gets a standing ovation, and then when he ends, he gets a standing ovation.
It was awesome. It was awesome.
It was from a producer. I couldn't have been more proud. From a consultant that's my client, I could have been more proud. But I got to be honest, as a professional speaker, it pissed me off. And this is what I do for a living, and I've done it, 6,000 times. And this guy steps on stage the first time and I've never gotten 2 standing ovations. I've never gotten a mid speech standing ovation.
We need to up his rate, John.
Right,
He's clearly underpaid. He's clearly underpaid for his talent.
Yeah.
That was really gratifying to see how much he resonated.
Cool.
That was awesome.
People love it now. And that you guys were pioneers, and a lot of times pioneers get eaten. And you guys probably
dog years.
Yeah. But the biggest thing, Sandy, is you were so and continue to be such a powerful change agent. Your passion, it's not the only thing on your plate. In your role as strategic communications and marketing executive of CMPD, Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department. I was just wondering when the chief, Jennings, realized that he didn't need to hire the DiJulius group. I mean, he had you. You've been one of the most effective project leads, so much passion, that you made us look good.
Thank you, John. No, thank you for that. And I loved bringing you all on because listen, we all know our limitations, and being inside the organization, I know I don't have the power to let our workforce know, hey, we kind of need to do something a little different. I know I don't. I can help shepherd this work. But I think part of the power in my role is I know my limitations. And so when you need to surround yourself with great people, the naysayers, the leaders, the experts in this field, those who have done hospitality forever, those who are on the front line who think this is a bunch of malarkey and they don't want to do it. You've got to surround yourself with all of those people and add them all to the team, because it can't just be one doing it. There's no way, with all the other responsibilities too, that you could shepherd that through. So I appreciate all the work you all have done in joining forces with us, because it's monumental and it continues. It's something that I hope remains in the fabric of this agency forever. And I hope we see the impacts across the country. We've met with all the way out to Sacramento. I mentioned Portland. I've talked with Kansas City. Most recently, we were on the phone with Winston-Salem last week in North Carolina. Agencies in Virginia. The chief went and spoke at Harvard because Harvard wants to create some consistency around that customer experience for law enforcement agencies around the whole country. So we've just really seen this balloon and grow, and it's been an awesome testament to the work you all started many, many years ago.
Well, thank you, Sandy. You are one of my favorite people personally, as a human being, just everything about you, your aura, your passion. You are fantastic. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, John. Thanks for having me.
We'll be right back after this, Revolutionaries.
If you had 15 minutes with John DiJulius, what would you ask him? We want to know. This is Denise Thompson, Managing Partner of the DiJulius Group, and I invite you to contact us at thedijuliusgroup.com with your questions or write them under reviews, and we'll address them on future episodes.